My daughter called me a loser after I threw out my wife, her mom, for cheating. She said, "You are not man enough, Dad. A real man will forgive." I laughed and asked her to follow her mom. What happened next was rather unbelievable. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Jesse Thompson from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. My name's Carter, and for 20 years I thought I had something solid. Not perfect, but solid. I worked long hours as a property manager, overseeing renovations and tenant complaints while balancing the mess of paperwork that never seemed to end. I was the guy who handled the emergencies at 2 a.m., who fixed pipes and negotiated leases while my wife, Jasmine, stayed home with our daughter, Alyssa. I never resented that. I wanted her to have comfort. I believed, maybe stupidly, that if I did everything right, I'd be rewarded with peace in my home. Love, loyalty, the basics. But I was wrong. Fatally wrong. It started with the silences. Not the peaceful kind that comes when two people understand each other. This was the other kind. The kind that lingered like a storm cloud. Jasmine stopped asking me how my day was. She stopped sitting next to me on the couch. Her phone never left her hand, and when it buzzed, she'd smile like a schoolgirl. I tried not to jump to conclusions. I told myself I was paranoid. Tired. But even tired men know when their wife starts disappearing for hours and coming back with the smell of a different cologne clinging to her hair. I'll never forget the day I knew for sure. I'd come home early from a job site. She wasn't expecting me. Her car was in the driveway, but the living room lights were off. I thought maybe she was napping, until I heard the laughter. A man's laugh. Deep. Confident. Coming from the upstairs bedroom. Our bedroom. I don't remember walking up those stairs, but I remember opening the door and seeing a man's shirt on the floor. I remember her voice saying, "I thought you were working late." That's what she said. Not "I'm sorry." Not "please, let me explain." Just cold calculation. I didn't swing. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just turned around, walked back downstairs, and sat at the kitchen table. Alyssa came home half an hour later, all energy and earbuds, her face lighting up when she saw me. "Hey, Dad. You're home early." I looked at her, really looked, and asked her straight, "Did you know your mom's been cheating on me?" Her smile dropped like a stone. "Don't do this, Dad," she said. "You're always so dramatic." That was the first crack in the glass. I asked her again. She said nothing, just rolled her eyes and walked upstairs. The confrontation happened that night. I asked Jasmine to pack her things and leave. I told her I wouldn't make a scene. No drama. Just get out. But Alyssa came storming into the room like I'd kicked a dog. "You're kicking Mom out? Over one mistake." One mistake. That's what she called it. "You're not even man enough to forgive," she said. "A real man would fight for his family, not throw it away like trash." I laughed. Honest to God, I laughed. I'd never heard anything so upside down in my life. "Then go with her," I said. "If that's the kind of man you want, go find one. Because this one's done." They left together the next morning. Jasmine didn't look back. Alyssa barely packed her things, just took her makeup, laptop, a few clothes. Left behind her high school trophies, the birthday cards I'd saved, and the painting we made together when she was 10. That was the part that got me. Not the cheating, not the betrayal, but how disposable I became. Like 20 years of being her father meant nothing because I chose self-respect over submission. I sat in her empty room that night, turning over a cracked snow globe we'd bought at a county fair. It still had the little label she stuck on the bottom. "Best dad ever." Days passed in a fog, then weeks. People around me gave the usual advice. "She's young, she'll come around." Or, "She's just taking her mom's side out of loyalty." But none of that excused her cruelty. I couldn't forget the look on her face when she called me a loser. Not Dad. Not "I'm hurt." Just judgment, like she'd decided I wasn't worthy of love anymore because I wouldn't beg her mother to stay. The house was quieter than I'd ever known it. My footsteps echoed. Meals felt pointless. I started eating at the diner down the street just to avoid the silence. Then came the calls. Not from Alyssa, from her school. Her tuition hadn't been paid. I ignored the first email, then the second, then a voicemail from her advisor asking if we needed financial assistance. That's when I cut her off. Phone line, shut down. Car insurance, canceled. Health coverage, gone. I'd paid those bills out of love, out of duty. But love doesn't survive disrespect. I didn't announce it. I didn't send her a message to gloat. I just stopped. She made her choice. Let her mother's new man take care of her now. People said I was cold, vindictive. Even my sister tried to step in. She's just a kid, Carter. Don't ruin your relationship forever. But what relationship? A relationship built on conditions? Where I'm a man, only if I roll over and forgive betrayal. No, I had my limits. And if that made me the villain in their story, so be it. I'd rather be hated for having boundaries than loved for having none. A few months later, I remarried. Quietly. No big wedding. Just me, a woman who respected me, and a courthouse ceremony with dignity. I didn't invite Alyssa. Didn't tell her. I was starting over. I thought I was done. But the story wasn't done with me. I thought once Jasmine and Alyssa walked out of that front door, the worst part would be over. I assumed the silence would be peaceful, that my nights would settle into something manageable, maybe even restful. But it wasn't peace I found. It was a strange kind of loneliness that wrapped around me like a wet coat. The house was too quiet, not just from their absence, but from the echo of their judgment still bouncing off the walls. I couldn't unhear Alyssa's words, no matter how many times I replayed the confrontation in my head. You're not a man enough, Dad. A real man would forgive. That line played in my mind like a broken record. And worse, it wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Like she was disgusted by me. Like I was weak for choosing self-respect over humiliation. That wound cut deeper than anything Jasmine ever did. The days that followed felt like I was walking through molasses. I still went to work. I still answered calls. I still managed plumbing issues and rent disputes like nothing had changed. But something had cracked inside me. I avoided the grocery store where Jasmine and I used to shop. I stopped going to church. I pulled away from mutual friends because I didn't want to see that flash of pity in their eyes, the one that says, he got left, and now he's all alone. I didn't need their comfort. I didn't want their advice. I wanted space. And most of all, I wanted to understand how my own daughter could throw me to the wolves so quickly. Then came the social media posts. That was the part one hadn't prepared for. Alyssa's Instagram suddenly became a highlight reel of her new life. Her mother's new boyfriend, some smooth-faced guy who looked like he did curls more than character building, was all over her stories. They went out to brunch, took family selfies, and posed in matching outfits like some curated ad campaign. The first time I saw her call him Pops in a caption, I stared at my phone for 10 minutes. Not because I was surprised, because I was numb. That word used to mean something sacred. Now it was just content. I didn't react. I didn't like or comment or even block her. I watched. Quietly. Maybe that was masochistic, but some part of me needed to see it. Needed proof that she was really gone, not just physically, but emotionally. People at work started asking how Alyssa was doing in college. I just shrugged. I didn't tell them I'd cut off her tuition. I didn't say she was living with the man who slept with her mother while we were still married. I kept my pain private. But inside, I was boiling. Not just from the betrayal, but from the audacity. From the performance of it all. The emails started a few weeks after I stopped sending money. At first, they were polite. Hey, Dad, could you send over my tax forms? Then they turned sharp. I really need that information. It's not cool that you're ignoring me. And finally, the guilt tripping. Wow. So I guess you really don't care about me at all. Each message chipped away at whatever sympathy I had left. She hadn't apologized. She hadn't even acknowledged what she'd said to me that night. And now she wanted help like I was just a bank account on standby. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of principle. That was when Monica entered my life. She wasn't flashy or loud. She worked in human resources at a nearby firm and had this quiet, grounded energy about her. We met at a networking event I didn't even want to attend. She caught me nursing a drink by the bar, and we ended up talking for an hour about nothing and everything. I told her about the divorce, the betrayal, the fallout with my daughter. I expected her to look at me like I was broken, but she didn't flinch. Sometimes people confuse forgiveness with weakness, she said. It takes more strength to walk away from poison than it does to stay and drink it. That line stayed with me. We took it slow. No pressure. No big gestures. Just dinners, walks, and long conversations about grief, resilience, and starting over. Monica never tried to fix me. She didn't offer cliches. She just showed up and stayed. By the third month, I knew she was different. By the fifth, I knew I didn't want to lose her. So I proposed. It wasn't a fancy ring or a grand speech. Just two tired souls who had been through their own wars, choosing to face the world together. I didn't tell Alyssa. I didn't see the point. We hadn't spoken in months. She hadn't asked how I was. She didn't deserve to be part of this chapter. The wedding was quiet. Just us, two witnesses, and a county clerk with a warm smile. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. But peace, like everything else, didn't last. A few weeks later, Alyssa must have seen the photos. Maybe someone tagged me. Maybe she stalked my page out of curiosity. I don't know. But I got a text late one night. So I guess you really replaced us. No punctuation. No emotion. Just a flat line of blame. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes, thumb hovering over the keyboard, before locking my phone and walking away. There was nothing left to say. She had replaced me first. And now that I'd finally found peace, she wanted to drag me back into her storm. But something shifted not long after that. Monica showed me a post one evening. Alyssa had shared something vague but heavy. A black background with white text. Some people only love you when you're useful. When you stop being useful, you stop being family. The irony almost made me laugh. But I didn't say anything. I just went back to eating dinner, trying not to care. Later that week, I checked my voicemail on a whim. I wasn't expecting anything. Just clearing it out. That's when I heard her voice. It was shaky, soft, not the girl who had looked me in the eye and called me a loser. Dad, I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from right now, but I don't know where else to go. Please call me back. I sat there, phone still to my ear, long after the message ended. Not moving, not speaking. 2 days later, she was on my porch. I heard the knock just as I was pouring myself a cup of coffee. Late afternoon sun bled through the blinds, painting golden bars across the floor, and for a moment I thought maybe it was a delivery. But when I opened the door, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. Alyssa, standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen, makeup smeared like she'd been wiping away tears in a rush. Her hair was messy, her clothes crumpled like she'd slept in them. But it was her expression that froze me. She looked hollow, the kind of hollow you can't fake. "Hi, Dad," she whispered. Not "hey," not "I need something." Just those two small words, hanging between us like they were afraid to land. I didn't move, didn't speak. I just stood in the doorway, heart pounding, the handle cold in my hand. She shifted on her feet. I don't have anywhere else to go," she said. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside silently, and she brushed past me like a ghost, not quite meeting my eyes. The air behind her felt different, heavier. I closed the door and followed her into the kitchen. She didn't sit. She just stood there, arms wrapped around herself like armor. I stared at her, waiting, letting the silence do its work. After what felt like 5 full minutes, she spoke again, voice cracking. "He kicked me out," she said. "Rick, Mom's husband. He said I was too much drama, that I needed to figure my life out without leaning on him." I didn't say a word. She went on. "Mom said she agreed, that I was 21 and old enough to handle myself." She looked up at me, and for the first time in a long time, she looked like a child. Not a grown woman. Not the arrogant, cold young adult who had walked out my door months ago. Just a girl who had been handed reality, raw and sharp. I didn't hug her, didn't rush to fix things. I took a breath and said, "You can stay," but in the guest room. Her face twitched, like she hadn't expected that. "What?" she asked. "Not my old room." I shook my head. "That room belonged to the daughter who loved me. You left her behind when you chose to follow your mother out of this house." She looked like I'd slapped her. I said some things, I know, but I was upset. I didn't mean them. I raised my voice just slightly, not a yell, but firm. "You didn't just say them, Alyssa. You meant them. You stood there and said I wasn't man enough. That I was weak for not forgiving your mother for cheating on me. That I should have just accepted being disrespected. You called me a loser in my own house." She sank into a kitchen chair, tears sliding down her face. I didn't know what I was saying. I was angry. I thought. I cut her off. You thought loyalty meant pretending everything was okay. You thought family meant I had to take the abuse and smile through it. That's not family, Alyssa. That's manipulation. She sobbed harder, head in her hands. But I didn't comfort her. I let her sit in it, because that pain was her own now. I had carried it long enough. After a while, I said again, you can stay. But don't expect anything to go back to how it was. You're not a little girl anymore. And I'm not the dad you thought you could treat like dirt. That night, she moved quietly into the guest room. I had Monica stay at her sister's for a few days. Not because I was ashamed or uncertain, but because I needed the space to think clearly without distraction. The first few nights, we barely spoke. She stayed in her room mostly, coming out only to eat or use the bathroom. It was like having a stranger in the house. I noticed she didn't wear makeup. She wasn't glued to her phone anymore. Something had cracked open in her. Something real. But it wasn't enough to undo what she'd said. Not yet. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and found her sitting at the table with coffee already made. She handed me a mug without a word. I took it but said nothing. We drank in silence. Eventually, she spoke. He called me ungrateful, she said. Rick. He said I had no idea how good I had it. I didn't reply. She added. He said if I loved him like a real daughter, I'd stop acting like a brat. I waited. She looked at me then, eyes wide with a kind of horrified clarity. It made me think of you. How I treated you. I didn't get it before. But I do now. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to reach across the table and take her hand. But I also knew that remorse is cheap when it comes from desperation. Real remorse comes with consistency. So I said, understanding it doesn't erase what happened. But it's a start. She nodded, biting her lip, eyes glistening. I don't want to be that person anymore, Dad. I don't want to be like Mom. That line. That one broke something in me. Not because I believed her, but because, for the first time, I heard fear in her voice. Not of me, but of herself. The next few days were tense, but manageable. She cleaned up after herself. Cooked dinner one night. Asked if I needed anything when she went to the store. It was awkward. Like learning to walk again after breaking both legs. But I didn't give in to nostalgia. I remembered every insult, every dismissal, and I kept my distance. One evening, she asked, do you think you'll ever forgive me? I didn't look up from my book. Forgiveness isn't a switch, Alyssa. It's a long walk. And you haven't even tied your shoes yet. She nodded slowly, got up, and went back to the guest room. That night, I sat in bed thinking about all the moments I used to cherish, her little hand in mine at the fair, the way she used to call me Daddy when she wanted something, the nights I stayed up with her when she had the flu. They were all real. And they were all tainted now. I couldn't unlove her, but I couldn't unremember either. That's the curse of being a parent. You hold the past and present in your heart at the same time, even when they tear you in opposite directions. Having Alyssa in the house again was like living with a stranger who wore your child's face. She was there, technically, but it was as if someone had taken the girl I raised and swapped her out with a quieter, humbler version, like guilt had hollowed her out and left behind something softer but unsure. Our mornings became an awkward dance. She'd wake up early, shuffle into the kitchen, and either make coffee or just sit silently until I entered. The silence was different than before, not hostile, but cautious. Like we were both walking on a floor made of glass, trying not to crack what little piece we'd managed to build. She never asked for money. Not once. That, I'll give her. She cooked when I didn't. Cleaned without being asked. She stayed out of my way, but not in an avoidant way. More like she was trying to prove something by not asking for anything. But even her helpfulness felt transactional, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every chore was just another silent plea. Please see that I'm different now. Please believe I'm trying. I saw it. I just didn't know if I trusted it. After all, change without reflection is just performance, and I needed more than polite behavior. I needed accountability. One morning, as I sat with my coffee and she with her tea, she finally broke the silence. I know this doesn't fix anything, Dad. I know being here doesn't erase what I said. Her voice was soft, fragile, like she was scared to speak too loudly. I kept my eyes on the paper, flipping a page I hadn't read a word of. She continued anyway. I judged you so harshly. I thought I knew everything. I thought love meant always keeping the family together, even if it broke you. But I see now, you were the only one who never lied to me. That one got under my skin. I folded the paper and looked at her, finally. Her eyes were misty but clear. No crocodile tears, no performance. Just a young woman trying to peel off the arrogance that had armored her for years. I took a breath. It wasn't just what you said, Alyssa. It was how quickly you abandoned me. You didn't even hesitate. You sided with her like I was the problem for not being able to swallow betrayal. Her lips trembled. I know, she whispered. I was so scared of losing Mom's love that I didn't care about yours. And then I thought I didn't need yours anymore. But I do. That moment could have cracked the ice. It really could have. But trauma isn't melted away by tears and confessions. It's eroded slowly by time and consistency. I nodded, but my tone was firm. You're here because I have enough decency not to leave you out on the street. But don't confuse that with reconciliation. We're not there yet. We might never be. She flinched a little, but she nodded. I understand, she said. I don't expect anything. I just want a chance to show you I'm not the same girl who walked out of here. Her voice broke at the end, and she left the kitchen quietly. Days blurred together after that. She got a part-time job at a bookstore downtown. She came and went quietly, always texting when she'd be late, always washing her dishes, folding her laundry. She even started doing small repairs around the house, replacing the air filters, dusting behind the furniture. The kind of things I never asked her to do, but she did them anyway. Part of me wanted to believe she was genuine, that she was growing. But another part of me, a louder, wounded part, refused to let the guard down. Because the man she disrespected back then, that was the same man paying the electric bill now. Then one evening, Monica came over for dinner. It had been weeks since Alyssa moved back in, and I figured it was time for them to interact under the same roof. Alyssa cooked, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread, and set the table without being asked. Monica thanked her with a soft smile. It smells great, Alyssa. Thank you. Alyssa nodded, barely meeting her eyes. Throughout the meal, conversation was stiff but polite. Monica tried to ask her about work, and Alyssa answered, but didn't elaborate. She was civil, but distant. I could tell she was holding back, unsure of her place in this new structure where she was no longer the only woman in my life. After dinner, Monica and I sat on the back porch. The stars were just starting to come out, and the evening air had a late summer warmth that clung to the skin. She sipped her wine and said, "She's trying, Carter. I can see it." I nodded. I know, but trying doesn't mean I forget what she did. Monica placed her glass down and turned to me. You don't have to forget, but you do have to decide what kind of relationship you're open to now. Because if you keep her at arm's length forever, she'll never learn how to come closer. That truth stung. That night, I found a letter on my desk. Handwritten, folded neatly, my name in small cursive. I recognized the handwriting immediately. I opened it and sat down to read. It was 3 pages long, no dramatic flourishes, no manipulative flattery. Just her. Honest. Raw. She wrote about the guilt she carried, how she watched me crumble after the divorce and didn't lift a finger to help, how she used to believe love was just about loyalty, no matter who it hurt, how it took being discarded by her mother and Rick for her to realize what real love looked like. You loved me even when I didn't deserve it, she wrote. And now I want to learn how to love you the right way. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't move me. It did. But because I'd cried enough already, and tears felt too easy. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and put it in my drawer. I didn't rush to forgive. I didn't hug her or run into her room with some grand speech. I just let it sit with me. Let the words settle in my chest like stones in a pond, rippling out slowly. Maybe she had changed. Maybe she hadn't. But for the first time since she returned, I felt something unfamiliar rising to the surface. Hope. It's strange how healing doesn't arrive like a sunrise, sudden, radiant, and complete. It trickles in slowly, like the slow drip of a leaking faucet. You hardly notice it until the puddle forms. I kept that letter in my desk drawer for over a week before mentioning it to Alyssa. She didn't ask if I'd read it. Didn't bring it up at all. That was the first sign that maybe she really had changed. The old Alyssa, the one who used to measure apologies by how quickly they were accepted, would have pushed. But this version was different. She gave me space, and I needed that more than anything. I didn't tell Monica about the letter right away. Not because I was hiding it, but because I wanted to sit with it on my own terms. Everything in that letter had been a reflection of the kind of maturity I'd been begging to see in my daughter for years. Not just regret, but accountability. She didn't minimize her actions or try to justify her betrayal. She just owned it. That mattered to me. In a world where everyone scrambles to be right, being honest is rare. Alyssa had finally let go of her pride long enough to tell the truth, and I couldn't ignore that. One evening, about 10 days after I'd read it, I called her into the living room. She appeared in the doorway like a student reporting to the principal's office, nervous, hands tucked into the sleeves of her sweatshirt. I motioned to the seat across from me and said, "I read your letter." Her face tensed, waiting for impact. I let the silence breathe for a moment, then added, "It was good, real, painful but honest." She nodded, biting the inside of her cheek. "I meant every word," she said. "I didn't write it to manipulate you or win anything back. I just wanted to tell the truth." I studied her. The girl sitting across from me wasn't the same one who had hurled insults at me on her way out the door with Jasmine. There was a stillness in her now, a humility that hadn't existed before. "I believe you meant it," I said, "and I appreciate that you didn't ask for forgiveness, that you just gave me your truth and let it sit." She swallowed hard. I figured I had no right to expect anything. "You don't owe me." That was the second time she said that since returning. And each time, it hit differently. Because she was right, I didn't know her. But that didn't mean I couldn't give her something. I stood up and walked to the fireplace, where a photo of us, taken when she was 10, still sat, tucked between a framed Bible verse and a small ceramic lighthouse. In the picture, we were at a pumpkin patch, both of us laughing, her missing a front tooth. That girl I missed. I picked up the photo and turned back to her. "You know what I miss?" I asked. She looked up, eyes wide. "That version of you. The one who used to believe in me, who used to hug me without needing a reason." I don't know where she went, but I've been grieving her for a long time. Her eyes filled with tears. "She died the day I watched you fall apart and blamed you for it," she whispered. "And I've been grieving her too." We sat in silence, the kind that felt sacred rather than awkward. Eventually, I spoke again. "You can't undo what happened, but you can build something new. Not to replace what was, but to prove that you've learned, that you're still growing." She nodded slowly, tears falling freely now. "I want to. I really want to." That was the first time in months I let my voice soften fully. "Then keep showing up, Alyssa. Not just with chores or coffee. With honesty. With patience. Because rebuilding takes longer than breaking." The next morning, I found a sticky note on my desk. It read, "Breakfast on me. Check the fridge." I opened it to find a small container of scrambled eggs, toast, and a note folded underneath the napkin. Another letter, shorter than the first. It read, "I know love is more than words, but sometimes words are all I have until I can prove the rest." I smiled for the first time in a long time, not because everything was fixed, but because something had shifted, like a door creaking open after being sealed shut for too long. That weekend, she invited Monica to brunch. I half expected her to back out, to ghost Monica last minute the way she used to do with her school counselors or relatives she didn't feel like facing. But she didn't. She showed up, dressed respectfully, no phone at the table, engaged in actual conversation. Monica was gracious, as always, but I could see she was surprised. Not by the effort, but by the sincerity. As we walked out of the restaurant, Monica leaned toward me and whispered, "She's trying to build a bridge." I think she just realized how far the river really is. Back at home, Alyssa disappeared into her room for a while. When she came out, she was holding a shoebox. "I found this in the closet," she said. "It has stuff from when I was a kid." She opened it slowly. Inside were birthday cards I'd given her, old report cards, photos of our family trips. At the bottom was the snow globe we bought together at that county fair, the one she left behind the day she walked out. She held it gently, then passed it to me. I kept thinking about this after I left, about how it used to calm me down, and how I left it behind like it didn't matter. I took it from her and shook it lightly, watching the fake snow swirl around the tiny plastic cabin inside. "You can't go back," I said softly. But you can make peace with what you left. She nodded. I want to. I want to be someone you're proud of again. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I looked at her and said, I'm not proud yet, but I'm willing to keep watching. It wasn't a full embrace. It wasn't a sweeping reconciliation, but it was something, a moment of truth. And for now, that was enough. There's a difference between forgiving someone and letting them back into your heart. Most people think they're the same. They're not. Forgiveness is internal. It's a decision you make for your own peace, not for reconciliation. Letting someone back in, that's a separate choice, and it comes with risks. Alyssa had been back in my house for over 2 months, and though the tension had eased, the trust hadn't fully returned. I'd forgiven her in pieces, quiet, unspoken pieces that came during random moments. When I saw her doing the dishes, or when I caught her pausing to stare at old photos. But letting her fully back in, that was another matter. Some mornings, I'd wake up and forget that we'd ever fought. I'd hear her humming in the kitchen, smell breakfast, and for a second, I'd think we were back in time. But then I'd catch myself, remember the sting of her voice saying I wasn't man enough. Remember the day she chose betrayal over blood. That memory always cut through the fantasy like a knife through fog. I didn't want to live in the past, but I also refused to pretend it didn't shape the present. Alyssa had changed, yes, but so had I. And not all change is reversible. One afternoon, Monica and I sat on the back porch sipping iced tea while Alyssa mowed the lawn. Monica watched her for a moment and then said, She's learning the hard way. But at least she's learning. I nodded but didn't respond. I appreciated Monica's grace, her ability to hold space for people without demanding too much from them. She had been patient with Alyssa, never forcing a relationship, but always showing kindness. That quiet kindness was something Alyssa hadn't earned, and yet Monica gave it anyway. And in a strange way, it reminded me of the kind of father I had been before everything fell apart. Later that evening, Alyssa came into the living room holding a small envelope. I found this in one of my old school notebooks, she said. It's a letter I wrote to you back when I was 15. I never gave it to you. I took the envelope, my hands slightly trembling. Inside was a wrinkled piece of notebook paper, the handwriting uneven and full of emotion. In it, a younger Alyssa had written about a fight we had, how I grounded her for skipping class, how she felt misunderstood. But at the end, she wrote, Even when I'm mad at you, you're still my hero. I just don't know how to say it yet. I read it slowly, letting each word sink into the gaps left by years of distance. When I looked up, Alyssa was already crying. I used to think love was supposed to be easy, she said, that it meant always getting your way. But I get it now. Love isn't easy. It's work. It's showing up when it's hard, even when you're wrong. Especially when you're wrong. I put the letter on the table and sat back in my chair. It's not about being perfect, I said. It's about owning your mess. That's what makes love real. That weekend, we had a family dinner, nothing fancy. Just spaghetti, garlic bread, and a little music playing in the background. Alyssa laughed at one of Monica's stories, and for a brief moment, I saw a glimpse of the old her. Not the naive girl who walked out, but the one who used to light up a room with joy, the one who used to beg me to watch movies with her even when I was dead tired from work. I didn't say anything in the moment, but something inside me cracked open. Maybe not fully, but enough. After dinner, I walked out onto the porch while Alyssa did the dishes. Monica followed me out, her hand resting gently on my arm. You're doing the right thing, she said, holding your boundaries, giving her a chance, but not letting her forget the cost of what she broke. I exhaled slowly, watching the evening sky fade into purples and soft orange. I just don't want to lose myself again, I said. I loved her so much I forgot to love myself. I won't make that mistake twice. Monica nodded. You don't have to. You're different now too. That night, I passed by the guest room and saw Alyssa journaling. She didn't notice me. Her head was down, her pen moving steadily across the page. It made me think, maybe healing isn't a straight line. Maybe it's more like stitching. You pull the thread gently, carefully, through each torn edge. And even though the scar remains, the fabric holds again. Not the same as before, but stronger where it broke. I stood there for a moment longer, then walked away. I didn't need to interrupt her growth. Some things are better left to unfold without interference. Weeks passed. We found a rhythm. Not the old rhythm, but a new one. She got a second job and began saving for her own place. We shared more meals, more conversations, some deep, some light. I still kept her in the guest room, not out of cruelty, but as a reminder that actions have consequences. Love can be rebuilt, but it doesn't erase the fallout. It simply gives you a chance to lay new bricks, carefully, deliberately. I told her one night, "You're welcome in my life, but not entitled to it." She nodded. No argument, just acceptance. The day she moved out, she hugged me longer than she had in years. No words, just a squeeze that said everything. I didn't promise her anything. No guarantees. Just a quiet goodbye and the faintest nod of approval. She left with a small suitcase and the snow globe in her hand. That detail got to me. She had left it behind once without care. Now she carried it like it mattered. That was enough for me to believe she was on the right path. In the quiet that followed, I sat down at my desk and pulled open the drawer. The first letter was still there, folded neatly, the paper a little softer from handling. I reread it, this time not with anger, but with a strange mix of sorrow and peace. She had hurt me, yes, but she had also tried, truly tried, to make things right. And maybe that's all any of us can do. Not erase the pain, but try. In the end, I didn't fully welcome Melissa back into the space she once held. But I gave her something more honest, the opportunity to earn her place again. That's what love becomes when you've been broken by the people who were supposed to protect it. Measured, cautious, but still present. I don't regret what I did. I chose dignity over comfort, boundaries over blind loyalty. And maybe that's what being a man really means. Not how much pain you can take for others, but how bravely you protect your own peace. If you've ever had to rebuild your peace after being betrayed by the people closest to you, then you know, it takes more strength to set boundaries than to suffer in silence. This story isn't just about a father and daughter. It's about what happens when love meets self-respect. So tell me in the comments, have you ever forgiven someone but refused to let them back in? Let's talk about what real healing looks like. And if this story hits home, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more real-life tales that speak the truth we're often afraid to say out loud. See you soon in the next story.